There are so many other men that are feeling like they're failing. Single fathers who feel like, I don't know what to do here. My kids may or may not want to spend time with me. That feelings of shame and regret and not knowing what to do, that exhaustion, that overwhelm, that work life struggle. I think that's very common.
What is up, family? It's Ed Galdrine of the Dad Central Show and Dad Central, and it's snowing outside. So, Drew, are you on your rink?
Well, hello, Drew Stolen of Dad Central, the one with the rink. I have not been on it for a while just because it's been so warm, but I'm looking forward to this weekend getting out, shoveling it off, and maybe getting on it.
Yeah, that'd be good. Before we go any further, the Dad Central Show is sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. Dove Men Plus Care believes that care is the best of a man because when men care for themselves and others, there's positive impact. So, what's going on in your world?
You know, Ed, are you a news person? Like, do you consume the
Yes,
news
I
regularly?
don't consume a lot of it, but I high level because I don't watch a lot of it because it can not me, but just so much negative news out there.
Right. And so this is the thing. I don't watch the news at all.
Mhm.
But the other day I was at a restaurant, like a fast food place, and I was sitting there, taking a few minutes, and I was, these two screens staring right at me, CP24, like the news pulse constant on there. And so, my eyes are drawn to it and I'm watching, I'm reading, and I wasn't there longer than probably 7 or 8 minutes, eating my whatever I was eating. I noticed that as I left, I had the greatest sense of like almost angst. I was like, what is this? And I was like, sitting there reading that ticker, watching that news
Mhm.
automatically elevated my just state. And
Mhm.
this is the main reason that I don't consume the news. But here's my other thing is there was a mom with her child in there. These screens are literally everywhere. Everywhere we take
Mhm.
our kids, everywhere, on our phones, everywhere. And I just started thinking about what is the impact of this constant inundation of
Mhm.
this sensationalized content being filtered to our kids, let alone the impact on me. And then how parents then parent out of consuming this content constantly over and over and over. Anyways, we're not obviously going to be talking about it today, but I just wanted to put out, I think it would be worthwhile to have a conversation down the road because the content that is constantly hitting our kids has a significant impact as well as it impacts us. And I just noticed that. And so I just want to put out there. Personally, I don't consume the news. And I think it's problematic if we do consume a lot of it.
Good point. I think it merits a show on its own with someone who's connected. I know we've had some people on the past, but I think it needs to always be brought up again because not only at that time, but think about if someone's watching it over and every day, over and over. There's an old adage especially it was in the days of newspapers. I know there's still some out there, probably not many physical newspapers. The line, if it bleeds, it leads. Old adage back in the day in media that if it bleeds it leads, so I think you're certainly making a point to that, but we will get to that. And yeah, the media impact is people just think about it watching it then, but down the road over and over and over into the subconscious mind over and over again.
Yeah.
So
I'll just make one quick point. I had a student that I worked with. She was an intern, fantastic, lovely young girl. And I met with her a few years later. She had gone on to work professionally. She was really struggling. And we just started to explore what was going on. And she was living in Montreal at the time. And her morning routine was consuming the newspaper,
mm,
and coming home was consuming the newspaper. And the change that happened in her from, just a few years before, she was nervous, scared, timid, and just like so locked up. And the only thing that changed was that morning and nighttime commuting routine, essentially. And anyways, I just think that we talked specifically about that. What if you change this one thing? What might change for you?
Huh? Like I always say, it's the little things that make or break. It's not the big things. It's the little things.
Yeah.
So let's lead in.
Yep.
We've got a new friend on our show today, Rob Rohde, the business of dad being a dad podcast on the Dad Central show. He's going to be sharing with us today. And we had a great pre-recording conversation with him, and we are excited to have him. So why don't we bring him on? Hey, Rob, what's going on?
Hello, Ed. Hello, Drew.
Hey,
how are you guys? It's good to be here.
Outstanding. How about you?
I'm great. I am here in Fort Collins, Colorado. So that's about an hour north of Denver. And it's sunny and it's beautiful. And I'm enjoying this sunny February day.
Nice. Well, you're in the state of Drew's favorite football team.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, only about an hour north. Yeah. We won't talk about it because the season's over. We're in an off season right now.
I wish that I could, get on board with you on that, but I actually was born and raised in Southern California, and so I am a Chargers fan, and so the Broncos are not my favorite team.
No, they would be rivals for sure.
Oh, wow. I do have hope for your new coach.
I do have hope. I'm still bitter that they moved out of San Diego up to LA, if I'm being honest, but I do have hope in, I'm excited to have Harbaugh there, and it's a new beginning.
Absolutely. Well, let's get into our conversation today and just share a little bit about yourself to our Dad Central show family.
Sure. So my name is Rob Rohde, and I am a single father of 5 daughters. And it's been an exciting journey for me, and I have kind of gone through several different iterations of fatherhood, from being married to being a single father, and I am currently a solo father of my daughters, and I think we might get into that a little bit more later, but I just like to share kind of where it all began for me, kind of where this journey that's led me to where I am right now and what I am doing with my life, where that has began. And, there was this moment in my life about maybe 3-4 months after the girl's mom and I became separated. And I was in the car driving over to pick up my daughters for their parenting time with me. And I remember thinking on that car ride, there were some struggles. Things were not perfect with us. I was making some mistakes. I was working a ton. I was just so focused on, kind of overwhelmed and focused on everything going on in my life. I was kind of drowning a little bit. It was hard for me to provide for them I knew it was hard for me to provide for them what they needed from me. I had 5 daughters living in a 2-bedroom apartment, and I was expecting these girls to come over and spend time at my place because that's all I could afford at that time, because I was my resources were going towards their mom to help support her as well. And so I just remember driving over thinking, man, this has been a challenge. This has been a struggle. But I pull into the driveway and I'm feeling optimistic, and I'm thinking, you know what, this time it's going to be different. This time I'm going to be patient. This time I'm going to put their needs first, no matter what. This time I'm just going to listen to them without trying to fix all of their problems. And, I was sitting there thinking this, and then my heart kind of stops as their mom walks out to the car alone. And she tells me that my oldest girls didn't want to come over to my house. They didn't want to spend time with me. They were upset. As I said, they probably had a right to be. But I remember feeling so angry, so resentful, and ashamed, and just kind of broken. I was thinking to myself, my own daughters don't even want to spend time with me. And I felt like a complete failure. And then as I drove away, that feeling started to change to anger, and started to change to resentment, and started to change to blame. And I kept thinking, what is my what has my ex-wife been saying about me? And I started blaming her for like poisoning me to the kids. And I was blaming my job because I was working a ton of hours. And I was blaming my daughters for not appreciating everything that I've done for them over the course of my life. And I kind of sat in that place for a couple of months. But I realized something during that period, and I realized, you know what, Rob, you can't control all of these things that are happening to you. You know, you can only control your response. And I know that seems so simple, but sometimes it's those simple things that make this great impact in your life. And so I started kind of focusing on the things that I could do different. I started, trying to take a look at myself and began, I would say, to start taking some responsibility for my actions and began to start owning up to some of the things that I had done wrong. Began to stop blaming my daughters at least, but I didn't really turn the corner quite yet. And then one day I was alone in a bad place, sitting in my room as the girls were at their mom's house, and I was feeling so lonely. And I remember hearing these words on a podcast that I was listening to, and the words were, "How has your leadership contributed to this result?" And I heard those words, and I immediately turned towards the mirror and I looked at myself and I kind of asked myself, Rob, how has your leadership contributed to this result, this fractured relationship with your daughters? How has your parenting contributed to this result? And it just sunk in and it just hit me. And I won't say that everything just changed all at once, but I can say that I started moving from this place of being a victim where everything was happening to me to becoming empowered, where I began to have control over my life and could change my future moving forward. And so I spent all of my time studying everything I could possibly learn about leadership and parenting and finances and how it related to being a parent and productivity and all of that. I went and got my master's degree in leadership. I went and um, studied everything I could on raising teens, on raising daughters, on raising sons. And I don't even have sons, but I was just so obsessed with going all in on learning everything that I could possibly learn. And something magical kind of happened over time. And what happened is that I began to improve my relationships. Changes started to happen a little bit deeper inside of me. And I kind of went from working all the time and missing these important events to always putting my kids first and always making sure I made their important events. I went from feeling like a failure to feeling confident and secure in the decisions I was making. And I went from having these fractured relationships with my daughters to starting to feel the sense of connection. I'm not going to say that it was fixed and everything was perfect, but I started heading in that direction. And then I've realized now looking back that there are so many other men that are in that situation. There are so many other men that are feeling like they're failing. Single fathers who feel like, I don't know what to do here. My kids may or may not want to spend time with me. Their circumstances might be a little bit different, but the feelings, the negative voices in their heads, the feelings of shame and regret and not knowing what to do, that exhaustion, that overwhelm, that work life struggle, I think that's very common. And so I decided to really commit myself to creating resources to really work with that specific audience. And that's how I've ended up where I am today.
Hmm. It's a powerful
Excellent.
story.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Drew, I'll let you lead off.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of different ways we could go based on what you've shared. But I think I got kind of curious at the end as you were sharing, I'm going to say the transformation that you've experienced after investing in yourself. I want to know, what was the motivation that really drove you to pursue what you've were pursuing.
Yeah, the motivation again was really pretty simple for me. It was I really asked myself and decided the type of man and father that I wanted to be. And that motivation was to become that person for my family and to become that person for myself so that I wanted to be able to look back and say, I did everything that I could do to be the type of man and father that my kids needed me to be, the type of man and father that they deserved. And it's easy to kind of say I'm going to I'm going to prioritize my family or I'm going to prioritize my kids. We all say that, but do we support that with our actions? Are we intentional with our resources, our time, our energy, our focus? Are we actually living that out in day-to-day life? And my motivation was to not just say that, but to live that so that I can make an impact in the lives of my family. That was my first and original motivation.
Hmm. Yeah, I really appreciate that. In particular, the word that comes to mind for me is the integrity that you're just describing. You had that vision, but you wanted to actually show up and become that vision, so that there wasn't this, oh, I'm going to say these things, but I'm going to do these different things. If it's a priority for me, then I need to actually dedicate time in my calendar. I need to actually put this into practice on a daily, weekly, monthly basis if it's truly important to me, right? Like we can say, my health is important to me, but when push comes to shove and it gets stressful, you go to McDonald's, you eat crappy food, you kind of run, you don't drink water, you don't do the things that actually indicate health is important to you. So what you're saying is that you needed to have integrity in terms of, I am going to be this person and I need to begin acting to validate that is the type of person I am.
Yes, exactly. You're pouring a little salt in my wounds with that McDonald's conversation because I do want my health to be good, but those McDonald's runs sometimes entice me.
Hey, as long as it's not a daily run, you're good to go. We all need a little treat every now and then. So whatever that is. So Ed, go ahead.
Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, you brought up being intentional, or what are your habits reflecting what it is that you want to be and the person you want to be. And I mean, that just kind of leads perfectly into me sharing like why I created or why I named my podcast and kind of my business, the business of being dad, because I feel that for me personally, I feel that I have learned how to adapt these principles that I use in the business space that I used within my profession and integrate them into my family life, and I have seen tremendous results from doing some of those things, some very basic things. Like if I have something that's if we for any of us, if we have something that's important to us within our job, we dedicate resources towards that project or towards that endeavor. We block off time on our calendar, like actually block off time to work on the things that are most important to us. We bring in other people if we need more support in order to get that project done or in order to make headway on that goal. We make sure that what we are doing aligns with our greater vision and our greater values. And I mean, so many of those things, they might be seen as being business principles, but I think when we have the ability to take those as men who maybe are kind of crushing it in our careers, but are struggling in that family side of life, when we have the ability to take those same ideas and incorporate them into our family lives, I think we can see tremendous growth within our families.
Yeah, 100%, Ed. I'm just going to share one quick story that really aligns with that. And it's not my story, but years ago, I listened to a gentleman by the name of Mark Timm, and he did exactly that. So he was a successful CEO of like Cottage Garden Inc. He was a speaker. He was traveling, doing a bunch of stuff. and he had, 7 kids, but he saw cracks in the foundation at home. And he didn't just figuratively bring the principles of his successful business home. He did. They incorporated their family. They created a family crest or logo. They had a family mission statement. They had family meetings, and he basically brought the principles of success from his business into his home, and it was transformational for all of them because it brought the intentionality and the focus on achieving results that are built off of the priorities and the principles that you want to see happening and to produce a valuable output. So couldn't agree more. I think it's a very crucial, at the end of the day, what Ray Dalio wrote this book, Principles. And what we're doing is you're taking principles that are universal and applying them in a context that matters. So that's really it's so valuable. A principle is a principle is a principle. Like it's like the law of gravity. You put something up and there's gravity, it's going to come down. Just like if principle is you do this, it's going to yield this type of output result. So anyways, I just want to jump on speaking my language. Great message. So Ed, over to you.
Yeah, thanks. At least 2 conversation pieces I want to get in. First of all, you had shared at the beginning that you felt your lowest of lows, really, really low. When did you notice you were making a turn with you in regards to your girls?
Yeah. So, well, that was a that was a slow burn, kind of a very slow, gradual process. And well, I can tell you not the exact moment, but exactly how when I started to notice. So, one thing that I did, and just to be clear, I have of my 5 daughters, I'm specifically referring to my 2 oldest daughters who are twins, who were teenagers at that time. And so one thing that I started to do is I continued, I should say, to just reach out to them on a consistent basis, regardless of the response. And I think that that is a big key. I chose to focus on what I was going to do and trying to show them, however I could, that I love them, that I care about them, that they were on my mind. And often I got zero response. Maybe I'd send them a text, maybe I'd call and they wouldn't answer. Um, and they were busy. I'm not saying it was always intentional. All that I'm saying is that I was definitely not getting the response that deep down I was hoping that I would get. And I just continued doing it though. And then eventually they started coming back over, but there was still tension. They started coming back over to my house just for dinners or for things along those lines. But when another commitment that I made was to no longer offer them advice, at least for a period of time, to try to go the next 6 months to a year with simply listening and trying to deeply understand what they were telling me, ask clarifying questions, try to understand their hearts more, try to understand their perspective. And so when we would have a conversation as a father, our first instinct, well, as a man, our first instinct is to problem solve. And as a father, our first instinct is to protect and to offer advice in order to protect and instruct and provide for our kids. And so that was not easy to do. That definitely required intention and self control and patience to ride it out. And so to answer your question, Ed, when the moment that I knew that something had changed was when they started asking me for my opinion or asking me for my advice during these moments. And I remember it just like, I don't remember any specific conversation, but I remember that change in the dynamic at that point. And again, like everything else, it's not like one small change and then everything's fixed. It's a process, and you have to be willing to grind it out and
Yeah.
dedicate your time to doing it and trust your process and do it from a place of your heart and your intentions, and not from a place of, I need to get this result from it in order to feel this sense of satisfaction.
Love that. Also, too, right? You've shared with our family here. You invested a lot of time in yourself when you were, especially in the early days of the turn. Who invested in Rob?
Who invested in Rob?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Was there anyone that invested, especially in the early days?
Yeah. Well, there are actually several men, but there are a couple of men that I will speak to. There was my father, who saw some things that I was struggling with, and took time to help provide direction and guidance and support. And there's more to that relationship than I'm sharing in this exact moment, but just for the sake of time, I will say that we loved each other a ton. We respected each other, but we were so different in our approach to being parents, and in our approach to, we just came from different eras in our approach to life. And so it was not an easy relationship, but I did respect him, and it meant a lot when he would take time to try to build into me. And then I had a specific uncle of mine who was kind of like a mentor during some of those years, because I was living in a different area at that time, and he lived in that area with me. And he is just a phenomenal man who really I've always respected as a husband and as a father and just as a person. He has this incredible ability to both enjoy life and live life the right way. And I've always respected that. But he gave me a piece of advice that is probably the best piece of advice that I've ever received as a father. And what he told me when I was at times when I was struggling was to take time to study my kids, to take the time to really get to know them and to study them as individuals. And I didn't even really realize what that meant at the time that he said it, other than, I need to take time to get to know my kids and to understand them and to treat them as unique beings, as opposed to a cookie cutter approach to parenting. But over the years, I have learned that it's so much deeper than that. It goes so much deeper. And but anyway, those are the two individuals that I will say invested in Rob.
I just want to have an additional conversation piece. Where would you be without those two men in your life?
I don't know exactly where I would be, but I know that I would not be where I am today. I know that the journey would have, at the very least, taken me a lot longer and been much more rocky. And I don't know if I would have ended up still where I am today, because I've always had this internal desire to be the type of man and father that my kids wanted and needed, but I didn't always know how to get there. And so they definitely helped speed up the process and helped build up my confidence and my ability and my belief that I had the ability to get there and to do it.
Well, I just want to bless both of them.
I appreciate that.
Are you a dad who feels like you're juggling a million things at once? Balancing work, family, and personal goals can be overwhelming. But what if there was a solution? That's why we created our new fatherhood community called Dad Mentor. For over 20 years, Dad Central has built practical tools to help dads. We understand the challenges you face and provide the support you need to thrive. The biggest complaint we hear from dads is there's no dedicated support for their specific needs. But not anymore. Our new community, called Dad Mentor, is here to transform your fatherhood experience. Imagine feeling in control, staying calm and patient when your children misbehave. Picture yourself connected to your children, guiding them with confidence and watching them succeed. When you join Dad Mentor, you'll have access to a community of like-minded dads committed to their dad journey, just like you. You'll also get the Dad's Roadmap. This is a step-by-step plan to help you go from unsure to unstoppable as a dad. Monthly masterclasses and Q&A sessions. You'll get answers and know exactly what to do straight from experts. Monthly group meetups that connect dads over common topics. A dad's resource library. Curated webinars, podcasts, or guides built by Dad Central to help you grow as a parent. And finally, you'll also get exclusive members-only offers and events. Now, many dads do try to do this fatherhood thing alone, only to find themselves trapped in frustration and strained relationships. Then they may turn to unhealthy coping mechanisms like drugs, alcohol, or other distractions, leaving their family and their own well-being at risk. We don't want you to reach that point of regret. Take steps to invest in you and your family today. Join Dad Mentor and go from stressed, tired, and overwhelmed to confident, calm, and connected. Join us today by going to dadcentral.ca/dads. Rob, before we came on, there's a turn to this story that you shared with us that I think would offer some value. So I'm wondering if you'd be open to sort of sharing a little bit about, I guess the reality of what you're going through or have gone through and where you're at now, having gone through that with some insights for people about building themselves up, and how being able to withstand significant challenges and maintain the relationship with their children, or maintain some progress despite more problems. I'm trying to be a little bit vague without giving away your story. So if you can,
that's
you're
all
following
right.
me. Okay. All right.
I am following you.
Okay.
I'm happy to share that story, because I do think that it can potentially help others who are struggling as well. But so about 5 years ago, I was at work, at the time I was working in healthcare, and it was the middle of the night, and I received a phone call. And the phone call was from the sheriff's office asking me to help identify the body of my daughter's mom. And that what happened was she ended up overdosing, what they believe was suicide. And I went from being a co-parent to being a solo parent. And there's more to the story than that. There were a lot of events that led up to that. There were some allegations of abuse against my daughters by their mom and her boyfriend. And there were a lot of court cases and other things happening during that time. And I am sharing this not to say, oh my gosh, what a horrible thing, that this individual went through. But I am sharing this, and I like to share this because we all have situations in our life when we feel like, okay, things are going better now. We are heading in the right direction. And then we get punched in the mouth. As Mike Tyson likes to say, we all have a plan until we get punched in the mouth. And then it's in those moments that we really find out what we are made of. And it's in those moments that we really find out how strong of a foundation we either have or don't have in our lives and in our families. And so having that conversation with my daughters the next morning that their mom had passed, and explaining kind of the dynamics of that situation, was the most difficult conversation I've ever had in my life. And it was easily the worst day of my life and the worst day of theirs. But we were able to move through that over time. we were able to move through that with support, and we were able to move through that by having a strong foundation to start with as well. And so we did the work. We all did the work. And I don't mean to say that. I really shouldn't say that as if it's in past tense, because it is still happening right now. I am still doing the work right now, and so are they. But the truth is that we are strong enough to get through whatever comes down our path, and we cannot control all of these things that happen to us. And I say that fully acknowledging that there are going to be times in our lives when horrible things might happen to us or to those that we love. And still, even in those moments, we have a choice to make. And I'm not saying that this is easy, but I am saying we have a choice to make. And that choice is, what are we going to do now? And how are we going to move through this? And it's very easy to put up our guard and to block the emotions that we're feeling, especially as men, and to not allow ourselves to process that and work through that. But that's going to leave us in a place of being stuck. And so it requires us to step into this place of courage and vulnerability if we want to be able to move through these really challenging times. But I believe that is what you were referring to.
Yeah, what I was referring to. And certainly, I can only imagine how challenging that has been. But I think your point is so relevant as far as, one, the work is still ongoing. So it's not that great. We have this good foundation, and, we can weather anything without its, leaving some marks. It's that you're constantly working, but when you have the right foundation, when you've put in the work, when you prepare yourself, you can get through it on the other side, and you will get through it on the other side. And some of the things we've talked about, I think, really speak to just the importance of support, the importance of your internal drive and the willingness to push through. But certainly very, very important, I'd say. Ed, do you have any? I see you thinking deeply there, so I know you've got lots to.
There's a lot I wanna, and I know the time is short, but can you give me and give our family a special moment you've had as a dad?
Absolutely. If it's all right, I would just like to go back really quickly to the story I just shared, just to say that I realize that there probably aren't many people out there who have had that exact situation happen in their life. But we have all had that moment that has felt like everything was crashing down on us. And we have all had that moment where we felt like so unsure about what to do and felt like we were ill-equipped to handle that situation. And we all, for those of us who became a single father in particular, it usually involves a sense of loss, either the loss of a marriage or the loss of a loved one. And so I do think that there is an element of relevance for everybody for that story. But to answer your question, Ed, in terms of a meaningful moment that I had with my kids, wow, there are so many. And my kids is my favorite topic. So I don't ever hide that. But I will say this isn't I will say, recently I went from working in healthcare to committing 100% to this business that I am now working in. And when I was thinking about making this decision, I shared it with my daughters, and I kind of shared what this would mean for us as a family. And what it meant, or what it would potentially mean, is potential sacrifice for each individual. And when I shared with them, they were not only their initial response was supportive, like, "Oh my gosh, Dad, we're so glad you're doing this. We're so proud of you for having the courage to do this." But then they circled back like over the next few days, and they came to me and they started saying, "Well, so I was thinking, Dad, if I, do some extra chores around the house, that'll free up some more time for you to be able to work on this. If we help make dinners on these nights, that will help so that you can feel more free to kind of, do more of this." And I'm saying this to say what that moment is it's not a single moment, but it is what has been created over a lifetime. And that is a family culture where
Mhm.
we support each other and we love each other, and we give each other these little like notes of love and affection. And then on my last day of work, I work at the hospital, there was a card and flowers, and they kind of did this nice little thing for me when I got home, and it was just really special. And again, that's more pointing towards this culture that's been created by all of us, not just by me, by all of us as a family, and really kind of stepping into it. And that is something I'm extremely proud of, but also thankful for.
Love the use of the term family culture. Love that. Really, really like that. That's a beautiful story. Thank you. Drew?
Yeah, Rob, as you shared that, I envisioned, this family culture of incredible support, of care, built off of, a strong example, a strong leadership. And so, with your idea of the business of being a dad and the study and involvement of leadership, can you talk about how important it is from your perspective for dads to step into or to embrace some elements of their roles to provide an example or some form of leadership to create these types of family cultures?
Absolutely. I mean, I can say that there's not a word that I can think of that adequately describes how important it is. So I will just say and I'm going to speak to all fathers, but I'm going to place a special emphasis on single fathers. And there are so many misconceptions out there about the importance of the role of a father, and that a potentially the role of a mom is more important than the role of a father. And this is especially true within single parent households. And I think that we can easily start to believe that and start to accept that as being okay. And so I just feel very passionate that we need to fight against that, and we need to really kind of be willing to, first off, we need to acknowledge the importance of our role and acknowledge the impact that we have on the lives of our family. And guess what? We have that impact no matter what. The question is it going to be a positive impact by being present and stepping into that? Or is it going to be a negative impact that hurts and damages our kids? But we do have an impact. That is not something we can debate. And so I just think that it is incredibly important right now, society being what it is at this present time, for dads to embrace that and take ownership of that role that they have, and to be willing to not just step into it, but to be willing to do the work. Because I will never say that it's easy, and I will never say that it's not a challenge. It is simple. I will say this, it is simple, but it is not easy. And so we have to be willing to both step into it and then do the work required on ourselves and on our families to really make that lasting impact.
Yeah,
I
so
like
well
that.
said. I'm gonna just try and put a exclamation on your what you just said. John Maxwell has a great quote, and it's every worthwhile accomplishment has a price tag attached to it, in hard work, sacrifice, something else. But at the end of the day, you've got to put in the do that, right? So that family culture and those important things that we're talking about, it's worth the work, that sacrifice. So yeah, well said. I kind of butchered the end of the quote, but the first part of it, I got it right. So Ed, over to you.
No, I just, there's so much richness there. What for you are the next steps as a dad, and also the business of being a dad?
The next steps is that, I mean, I am in the process of writing a book. I should rephrase that. I am in the process of contributing to a book where I am writing a chapter within that book. And the book is going to be called Transforming Your Life, and it will be released in April. But currently, I do have a one-on-one coaching program that is designed for single fathers called Thrive as a Single Dad. And it is designed to really help men step into that role, all the things that we've been talking about. But the largest emphasis of that program are on really having deep, meaningful, connected relationships with your kids, having boundaries and guardrails between work, life, parenting, all aspects of your life, and then really also understanding and having clarity on the things that are the most important to you. And so I work with dads for that reason. And I think that all men, entrepreneurs, whether you're wealthy, whether you're average, whether you're poor, no matter where you fit on that realm, all men have three things that they need in order to really feel alive or to really feel like they are being successful. I think all men need to be pursuing something meaningful. They need to have that where they're chasing after something that's truly meaningful. They need to feel alive and energized and just excited about something, and they need to have a deeper sense of connection. And there was a study of a 8-9 figure type entrepreneurs, and these were the things that they pointed to. Well, those are the same things I want in my life, and I think that it's universal for all of us. And so I keep that in mind as I am working with individuals and honoring their season of life, honoring the things that are most important to them, but also encouraging them to seek meaningful pursuits, deep connections, and things that make them feel alive.
Nice. Drew, anything else?
Yeah. So, well, just as we come to the end of this conversation, it's all about for us, what can dads take and apply? And I think there's so much that you shared around, but I'd like to finish off by saying, what is one question a dad should be asking himself if he's, based on our conversation today? And then another is, what is one action that a dad can take from today to help improve their fatherhood?
Yeah. So I will say the one question they should be asking themselves is how present are you in your kid's life? And I will say that the one action that they could be taking is to really prioritize the quantity of time that they are spending in their kid's life. Most people are going to say that quality time is the most important thing. And I am here to say quantity of time is the most important thing. And this is why, is because you cannot fabricate or create quality moments. You can try, but that becomes much more difficult as your kids get older. What you can do is make sure that you are there and you are present as often as possible so that those quality moments can occur, so that those moments of deep connection have an opportunity to happen. Because it's when you are there and your kids are in a place of feeling safe and secure that they will start opening up to you about things that are truly matter in their life.
Yeah, thank you for that, Rob.
All right. So as we close out the epic conversation today, I know people can find you best places, the Business of Being a Dad podcast. And you did mention before we started recording, you want to put an offer out there.
Yeah, I would love to offer your audience a free resource. It is a guide that I created really for this audience of single fathers, and it's a PDF called Thrive as a Single Father, named after my coaching program. And it is it will provide you with a 7-step roadmap to kind of move from a place of feeling overwhelmed and exhausted and unsure what to do next to a place of feeling clear and confident and knowing what your next steps should be.
That is fantastic. Thank you. We really appreciate that. So I'd like to say on behalf of Drew, myself, the Dad Central family, and dads, fathers, and caregivers, male caregivers all around the world, want to bless you, not on the hard work, but the heart work you're doing for all of us. And we appreciate that. And would love to say if there's anything we can do to help you amplify what you're doing, we're here to support you in any way possible and want to wish you a great day.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with your audience.
Take care. All right, Mr. Drew. Great conversation there.
Yeah, really great stuff. As someone who studies leadership and supports and coaches people to apply these leadership principles, and certainly believes very much in the very same message I think Rob is communicating. It was fun for me. It was affirming for me, and it was empowering or truthfully, like, exciting. Like, if there isn't something about what you're doing that gets you like up in the morning, then why are you really doing it? And so to hear other men doing this type of work and contributing, like, I wanted to like just dive in and be like, hey, let's talk more. So this to me is,
we can always do a part two.
Well, I love men coming together, being real, but pursuing things with purpose and intentionality. And there's a simple proverb that says, as iron sharpens iron, one person sharpens another. And I think that's the real value of being around like-minded people who are passionate, who are energetic, who've got insight and things that can help. Or the other saying is, a rising tide lifts all boats. So just that idea of growth and achievement and results. Yeah, I love that stuff.
Yeah, I'll just add on to that as a dad, what is your passion and what are the possibilities you can do with that passion?
Mm-hmm.
So if you are passionate about your family, look at all the possibilities that open up not only in you, but through you and for generations to come. And the other thing I want to share is asking all dads, fathers, and male caregivers, what is your family culture right now? So as we close off today, as always, the Dad Central Show is sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. Dove Men Plus Care believes that care is the best of a man, because when men care for themselves and others, there's a positive impact. Speaking about positive impact, you can help us increase our positive impact. Email us, contact us, feedback, questions, etc. Love to hear. Also, you can listen, watch our replays of our epic conversations, dadcentral.ca/podcast. And especially on the Apple platform, reviews. Please, thank you. And then finally, our website has a lot of free resources, dadcentral.ca. So as always, Drew and myself like to say, don't just manage your time, manage your energy. Remember to give yourself grace, and thank you for the support, and walk good. Have a great day.